welcome to the show. We're all about talking with people who didn't let their ideas stay ideas. They took a risk and made them a reality despite feeling not quite ready, and that includes us. So we're asking for a favor. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends if you enjoy what we're doing and want to see us keep making more episodes. It all helps. Even better, leave a comment suggesting how we can improve. We want to keep making quality episodes that you enjoy listening to. So thanks for the support. Let's get into it.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining. A little bit of background on the podcast. So we're it's called Not Quite Ready, and the whole idea is we want to speak to creators, entrepreneurs, anyone out there who's putting stuff out in the world, and oftentimes doing so despite potentially not feeling ready to do it, but they still took that leap. So our hope is to kind of promote their work and then additionally inspire other people to take the same swing themselves. So we came across your profile. You obviously have founded something very cool. So we thought it'd be fantastic to chat. So we really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So I guess quickly in like 30 to 60 seconds, could you describe like what you're up to right now, what it is that you're putting out in the world?
So I run the Calgary Horror Con, which is the first and largest horror convention in Canada. So we've been going now for 15 years, but because of COVID, we just finished our 13th show. We have part of the convention is we have 150 vendors, a bunch of celebrity signings and photo ops, and we have a full international film festival that we take in close to 1,700 submissions a year and put it into 2 days of programming.
Okay, that's helpful to understand. So we like to also start our podcast off with a little bit of rapid fire questions, get things moving. So the first question would be, what is your favorite movie?
There isn't such a thing. I'm such a horror fan and cinephile that I watched Starship Troopers last night and Motel Hell. But like it depends on what it is. Like I'm a big fan of all the slasher films because that's what I grew up with. So Friday 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Nightmare on Elm Street. And then I really like anything that Stanley Kubrick done. So The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, so it's kind of all over the place. Big fan of Jaws. It's kind of all over the place. So I'm a pretty hardcore horror fan in that my range is anything from horror comedy to a slasher to something more cerebral. Say like The Shining. I do like paranormal stuff. It's not as much as everything else, I'd say, but yeah.
Nice. Okay, so who would be some of your, let's say, top 3 favorite fictional characters across film?
Freddy Krueger.
That's a good
one. Pinhead from Hellraiser. Doug Bradley plays him. I always cheer for the monsters. I want to see people get hacked up. I find it very satisfying, right? It's one of those things. It's just kind of working out. I think horror fans are like the most well-adjusted people in that they've worked stuff out on film. Like, maybe it's, all my friends are animal lovers and are genuine, decent people for the most part. So, I think having that darker side is important, right? So
I have heard that like for the groups that have like the highest amount of vegans like per capita, it's people who are fans of like metal and horror. I don't know why, but it kind of shows. It's like they're very cognizant of animals. They're thinking about that, and they love metal.
No, it's true. I mean, if you look at Rob Zombie has made some of the most messed up films out there. And all of them live clean. They all meditate. They're all vegan, and I'm still a meat eater, but
Yeah,
I've thought
me too.
about kind of switching away from that just because it's like heavier
Yeah.
food. Yeah.
Okay, so when we did some research, we came across that you drive a hearse. Is that correct?
I have two hearses.
You have
I
two
have
hearses.
yeah, I have a 95 Cadillac Fleetwood with an LT1. So same engine as they put in the Corvette. And then I have a 92 Buick Roadmaster estate wagon. Um and it's got a 350 in it. And I'm wanting to basically they're my babies and my money pits. So I
So,
jump. so
so I guess like
but
what inspired the getting the first one? Because that's obviously pretty
I've always wanted to
unorthodox.
drive a hearse. And it's like it's the best kept secret. So you think that now if you when you pick up a body, say when you pick up a body, they usually pick them up in a van. So the only time that the hearse is ever used is when they're rolling somebody out to be buried.
Okay.
So all hearses have low kilometers.
Okay.
So it's nothing to buy a hearse that has 40,000 kilometers on it that's 10 years old.
Where do you
So
buy these? I'm
barely.
very curious. Like, how do you buy this? Do you search Kijiji for this or Facebook Marketplace?
So that there's kind of a lock on hearses, and that in Western Canada anyway, if one becomes available, there's two different sites that I belong to. There's on Facebook, there's the Western Canadian Hearse Club. So anyone in that group usually scooping up the next hearse that comes out, and Edmonton Bone Wagon Association also. They're kind of combined now, um, but yeah, if you're on either one of those sites, that's where you're gonna find those Facebook pages. That's where you're gonna find hers
So
So
because
are
there's a
you
whole bunch of us that are just gonna scoop it up.
so you're like
So
competing for it? Are is there like kind of like
there's a demand.
almost like car shows where it's like they invest into the uh hopping up your hearse, or is it just like you just kind of like
So
what's the
so
or the
eh,
community like there?
so just people love driving hearses. I mean, so I do construction as well as run the horror convention, and I can fit a full sheet of plywood or drywall on the back of my hearse, and it's all enclosed and it's on rollers. So I can fit all my tools in the back of a hearse. This is the best thing to drive, man. I'm telling you.
yeah,
It's the
yeah, yeah.
best thing.
It's cooler than a minivan too. So it's
Yeah, exactly. But my next purchase will be an ambulance. I want an
wow.
ambulance next.
So how
I
come an
didn't even know you
ambulance?
could purchase ambulances. Like, so can you use an ambulance as a daily driver, or do you need a special license for it?
No, because they sell ambulances all the time, and they pull all the lights out. You're not allowed to roll around town with ambulance lights, but you can
You get to
own an
work real quick.
ambulance. You just can't use it as one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, an ambulance probably even has more room than a hearse.
Well, I want it. I want it for a mobile studio because, like I said, I do indie filmmaking as well,
Yeah.
and I have a lot of my own gear, and I would be able to, just even for the convention, to have a mobile studio to have everything come out of that. Like I have a jib crane, I have a bunch of like Steadicam, I have a whole bunch of film gear equipment as well, and I do effects, makeup, and stuff like that. So having an ambulance would be great. So
Okay.
yeah.
I love it. Yeah. No, maybe that's the next business idea. Selling hearse. It sounds like it's a lot of demand.
Like best kept secret, low kilometers, and the only thing is they're 20 feet long, so it's hard to parallel park. Yeah.
When I grew up, I had to take my driver's test in my parents' Suburban, so I had to parallel park that. So I mean, it's not quite as long, but
Yeah.
I understand the challenge. That's funny. So
Yeah.
okay, so that's kind of the rapid fire. I mean, that's awesome. So I guess the first question we have. So you run the biggest horror show convention in all of Canada. You said it's been
Yeah.
13 years. How did you get started? What was the inspiration? Sounds like you're a big fan of horror films, but what was that leap, I guess, for you to be like, I want to be involved in the industry and like start a convention of all things?
I think ignorance is bliss. So I just one day I was like, what am I gonna do when I grow up? And now I was like, this would be 13 years ago. I'm 53 now, so I was 40, and I'm thinking, what am I gonna do when I grow up? Type thing. And I was like, well, I was really a big horror fan. I've always have been. I had at the time a comics and collectibles shop with a heavy horror slant in merchandise. Um, the Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo, which is one of the largest shows in North America still to this day, was already done. So I did a niche show and strictly horror. I have all my panels and everything is geared right towards the horror genre. So whatever you if you're a horror fan, you walk through the doors, everything is about you. This is the first year I've extended past that because I wanted to introduce another, basically a different show, which is the Cult Con. So I had, I extended past horror for this last show just because I wanted to introduce a new name and a new convention because that's all I want to do is I find it a rush. I do have a project management and business management and marketing and whatnot in background, and I basically I have a project plan, and my project's done at the end of the show, right? So, um, there's I guess all the paperwork stuff is the boring stuff. The cool
Yeah.
thing is that I get to meet the monsters and heroes of the big screen. It's basically my bucket list every year.
Yeah.
I got to hang out with Meatloaf for a weekend before he died, and it just it's been a rush. But I don't think I'm glad I was ignorant at the time when I started it because I don't think I would have done it because I didn't know what challenges that I was going to face. Sometimes you just got to dive in, and how I measure my success is I keep doing it. Like I mean, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but the passion and drive is always there. Um, this year I had a challenge in that I had a fire alarm go off in the first hour of my convention, and I had to pull everybody outside, and I took a big hit because that's a big sales time for everybody is in the first 2 hours of a convention. So it took over 2 hours just to get my crowd in the door, but I had a record attendance. So, so it's like, yeah, you win some, you lose some. Like to make a little bit more money, but it's but yeah, just starting the I'm starting from scratch is the hardest thing to get momentum, and that you have to build a track record, you have to build trust. I'm bringing in celebrities, and if they're not going to make their money, it doesn't matter if they have a sales guarantee and they know you got the money in the bank. It looks it looks bad on them, it looks bad on me if they show up to an empty convention. You know what I mean? So,
Could you set the scene when you started? So, were you driven by there? You saw something that you wanted yourself, and you were like, "I'm going to create this," or did you see a gap in a marketplace, or you're maybe frustrated by like what drove that initial step of wanting to try something so daunting? I guess.
so the thing was, yeah, that was easy in that there was conventions out there in Canada, but they were like an everything expo where they have sport guys and actors from different subgenres of TV and film, and yeah, it just there just seemed to be a need there, and I didn't really want to. I was My favorite genre, I guess, in film is horror, so that's what I wanted to work in. Now I'd like to go outside of it a little bit, just because I've brought in close to 200 celebrities in my career, mostly from the horror genre. So I would like to bring in Like I brought in Dave Lombardo, who is the original drummer of Slayer, and he's cross genres in music, both in punk and metal. So pretty big, pretty famous drummer. So I'd like to work a lot more with musicians and stuff like that, kind of moving forward as well. But I still want to keep the Calgary Horror Con horror, because I
Yeah.
love that show. It's what I like. And um yeah, there's nothing like it in Western Canada. And my biggest competition is a guy that owns 7 conventions in the US. And I bet you the one in Canada is the one he's losing money on.
Yeah. Speaking of that,
Because everything's US currency. Most of my guests are coming from the US. And even my celebrities from Canada, they all their sales guarantees and stuff. Like, I don't want to get heavily into how I do my business, but they get paid in US funds before they leave. So there's a big difference between our $2, right? So
yeah.
big difference between flights in Canada and flights in the US as well. So
Yeah, so we're both Canadians, so we complain about that all the time. So
yeah,
I get
if
the
you
bit.
go anywhere in the US, it's so cheap.
I
If
know.
it's staying in the US, as soon as you hit that border, the price goes up.
Yes. Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
so when you did it the first year, how many attendees did you have for your first convention?
200, and we might have padded those numbers.
Okay, so 200 give or take. And what did you said this last year you had a record attendance. What was the attendance this year?
I think it was like it was over 4,000 people.
Oh
We
wow.
had Yeah. So we went from like nothing to 4,000 people, but it took a while,
So
right?
and was it pretty like linear? Like was it a steady increase year after year? You just get a little bit more people, a little bit more people?
Um, yes and no. So how I've set up the Calgary Horror Con is basically I subsidize. There wasn't such a thing as a horror vendor in Alberta, and even like Western Canada anywhere. And uh like 90% of my vendors are artisan. So my vendors, I've basically stunted my growth to grow it right. So if I go and take, say, if I double my footprint, then I have to double my vendors. If I double my vendors, I better double my attendees. Because if I don't, I just put a whole bunch of people out of business, right? So it took me 13 years to build the vendor base that I have, and now they do a lot of other shows. I have I have some of my artist friends that are actually guests at conventions in the US now. So it's really kind of how I built it. I kind of stunted my growth intentionally because I've watched a lot of other conventions that come in and they'll run for 2 or 3 years, and they'll
Yeah.
consistently burn their vendors 2 or 3 years in a row because they're not seeing a return on investment. And then what ends up happening is they end up putting them out of business, and then they go out of business, or they can't. I have like one of the highest retention rates of any convention out there, and it's by design, and that you're guaranteed, unless you're completely incompetent, you're gonna make money at my show, right? If you have the wrong, wouldn't say incompetent. If you have the wrong product at my show,
Yeah.
you're not going to do well. And some people, even though they'll take a hit, they'll take a look at what everybody else is doing, and they'll come back and they'll kill it a couple years or the next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So and it, as you say that, so I guess just trying to better understand it. So you have this convention, and I imagine that a lot of attendees who are going are just people who are a fan of horror films, like similar to yourself. But when you're talking about vendors and making money, I guess, like, how are the vendors making money? Like, what would be a typical vendor that goes there? Like, what are they selling?
Okay, so where I make my money, or eventually will make my money, because it's not always making money. But
Yeah.
where I make my money is I sell vendor space and attendees come through the door. Now my vendors, I have ones that are a typical vendor for me. A lot of times is a lot of fan art. I do have some guys that do props. I do have guys that sell statues that they build themselves. I have fashion designers. Lewis Mayhem out of Edmonton is probably one of the biggest ones that I have at the show. Uh, I do have a couple clothing stores like Red Moon Curios, Demonized Clothing. They make a lot of their own stuff as well. So I have anything from fashion designers to photographers to fine artists to prop makers to you name it. But and then I have guys that are selling movies, right? I do have a few retailers, but for the most part, my show is all people creating their own art. So
as I understand it, there's a lot of networking involved. I'm guessing you've got to sell the vendors to convince them to come to your show. You've also got to sell potential customers to visit and come and participate. I can imagine this is pretty tricky when you're getting started. You're having to take some risks, and I'm imagining putting out some capital outlay in order to rent these spaces, and then you've got to bring people to the event. Could you maybe talk through when you're getting started, some of like what that was like, how you kind of overcame that challenge? Because it sounds very difficult to just get something off the ground.
So it's a little bit more difficult than most people start a business with money. Anything that I've done, and with the Calgary Horror Con, I started with zero investment and generated everything that I made. It's a very dangerous game to play. So what I did is I went and got all the vendors I needed, and then I sold tickets. I didn't have a marketing budget. So what I did was a lot of guerrilla marketing. I would show up at other events and piggyback off the marketing efforts of them. I have people that do it to me now. And coming from my perspective of how I built my show, I'm okay with people doing it to me. But I mean, I made a few enemies in the beginning because, like, I would show up with a bunch of my friends in movie replica costumes at, say, the Lilac Festival in Calgary here, and we get swarmed for photo ops the whole down the street. And we stand out because it's such a vanilla show. It's kind of like an all family, whatever. And people are handing Freddy Krueger babies to take photos with him. It's like, he can barely see out of that mask. And those are claws like, here, let me hand him the baby, please. But yeah, we did some crazy stuff to kind of to build our numbers up. If you don't have money, you gotta hustle. And I don't know if that's the way I'd want to do every business, but that's the way I did the HorrorCon is that I had zero money in the bank, like no investment whatsoever. I committed to booking a venue at Mount Royal, and then the economy turned around, and I had a couple slow months with my comics and collectibles shop. I had absolutely no money to put into the show whatsoever. And for the most part, I built everything organic in that I'm not always having to dump 50, 100 grand into marketing every year, right? So I built it organically, and I gain more customers than I lose every year.
Would you say it's fair to say that you're leveraging attention rather than capital? So rather than, say, buying marketing, you're going off and doing these kind of, I guess, marketing stunts that you dress up in costumes and go and get people attention. And then once you have their attention, how would you, like, how would that
So,
work? One, how would you come up with these ideas for
well,
what makes a good marketing stunt?
I'm doing a lot of stunting. And I've done less of that now, and then I am paying for marketing. Like I had a billboard on a major vein in and out of the downtown core in Calgary. So I did have a billboard this year, but there was a popular radio station that gave me 18 grand worth of advertising, and I didn't see barely anything for it. So I've done a lot of online marketing and stuff like that. That's where I've put my money and focused my attention. I'm down for sponsorships, but know that, you know, I think I have to work hard for every number, and that I'll poster, I'll put handbills out at other conventions. Uh I'll pay for social media ads on Facebook and Instagram. Um the best thing is actually rolling two hearses with your logo wrapped on them. So
I guess that's the
honestly, like the best thing is like I'm gonna drive downtown anyway. Might as well make it
about
worth my while.
be a billboard.
So
So what one thing you would quickly mention there as well is I know you said at the start that you do construction, which you put in your hearse, and then you also mentioned a comics and collectible shop. So are you still running like this comics and collectible shop?
no, I shut it down to focus on the convention. It was doing well. Again, started with nothing. When I shut it down, I was probably sitting at about 100 grand worth of retail, and I was able to sell it for exactly what I paid for it. So
So
I just
and
one day decided to switch it because the HorrorCon's a full-time job,
yeah,
and I I honestly didn't want to shut down the comics and collectibles shop, but the challenge is, I guess it's like one of the one of the first lessons you'll learn in business is just because something looks good on paper doesn't mean it's going to work out.
yeah.
So I had like probably it was not a great location for my shop. So what I would do is I would close my shop at 8 o'clock every night and deliver flyers all night to generate enough sales for my next day. And it worked. And that I ended up doing on average 10 grand in sales, which isn't that much, except for the fact that in a less than desirable location, I was only paying 1,100 a month for rent, right? So I was making it work, but my landlord would never let me sign a lease for more than a year, and then wouldn't negotiate until the final hours where they'd come out with a ridiculous price and say take it or leave it. So the last time they said take it or leave it, I did a midnight move and went somewhere else for a while, and then I just said I'm not I want to do something different. I
Okay.
really enjoyed it though. I miss it.
So
I did quite well with it.
how long did you run it for?
7 years.
7 years. Okay. And then
And
so you mentioned
at the end I had I was basically partnered on 2 locations,
interesting.
and we
Okay,
scaled it back.
that's very cool. And then you mentioned that you're in construction. So are you self-employed with construction as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what kind
Yeah.
of work, I guess, do you do with that?
I get bored easily, so I do a lot. So
I was gonna say, I mean, every
so
answer you have, it's like you started something new.
I do textured ceilings, drywall, taping, painting, flooring, electrical, plumbing, basically every trade. So jack of all trades, I'd say master of most. So
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 and I guess what's because it sounds like when you started HorrorCon, you had to do a lot of like do-it-yourself marketing. As Taylor said, you're grabbing attention with things like dressing up as Freddy Krueger at the Lilac Festival. So how did that sort of translate to Like, have you learned lessons from starting the HorrorCon that have translated into like a more conventional business, like construction?
So, um, e- everything. If you have it, like I have a team of volunteers. I have a bunch of really good friends. I have a handful of people that are close to me that help me every year. Um, but like I literally do everything for the show, including I was doing all the artwork and I was doing the web design. I now have people to do that. Um, but I literally did everything from project plans to marketing plans to even creating the vendor badges. So I create my own vendor badges every year, and I have a friend that does the artwork for me. So, but I used to do all the artwork as well.
Okay.
It sounds like you've got a very deep skill set in a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
How I think nowadays a lot of people feel like they have to specialize in specific areas and
Yeah.
then hire people to do other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that, and how do you develop your skills in so many areas?
My skills being developed in a whole lot of areas came out of necessity. So I have autism. So I have what you call Asperger's syndrome. So um I have a communications deficit without an intellectual deficit. But I'm 40. I'm 53. I'm 53 now. So I've worked through a lot of things, right? So I was fired from IBM 3 times, for example. They
Okay.
kept hiring me for my skill set and firing me because nobody could read me. Nobody knew anything. Like it just, I was an oddball. I had to walk away from a job at Talisman Energy where I was on the server team because my whole team of 30 people hated me. So, and the reason why is I found out that what they were doing for the last 6 months, something in their process, all of their work had to be revisited for 6 months for 30 people. I found that out in a day or two. So I'm smarter than the average bear, but I've always been a team player. But um I guess I'm an oddball. Like I that's it kind of works out that
Yeah.
I'm such a weirdo and I run a horror convention.
Yeah. 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 No, I
It's
mean, I
like I
think,
found home.
yeah. You got to probably be a little unconventional to run a horror convention,
So
drive a hearse.
fine. So the point of the whole thing is I have so many skill sets in so many different areas out of survival and necessity that one thing wasn't panning out for me that I had to move on to something else. I left IT after about 15 years of instability as a contractor. Um, I started out, I took a virtual reality technology course building training simulators. And the only job offer I had was at NASA Ames Research Center in Huntsville, Alabama, building training simulators for them. And at the time, I didn't want to move, and now I really wish I did. But anyway, you don't know where you're going to end up in life, right? So, I I went back to construction because that's how I started. I worked on my first house when I was like 16, building. So,
So,
yeah.
So how
so, oh, go ahead.
I'm curious how, when you face these challenges of you have to pivot or you have to learn something new, this is something that really stresses a lot of people out, but it seems like
Yeah.
you have done it so many times. I'm wondering,
Yeah.
are there lessons of like you have a setback and you're like, I have to try something new and I don't know what it is. What's your mindset, or how do you approach that maybe other people could learn from?
I don't know. That's a really so if you ask the same question from me, if you asked the same question 6 months ago, I'd have a different answer. And um I I don't know how much I want to overshare. So I'm learning to become a psychic medium. And one of the things for me to be able to have the ability to get visions and to channel and communicate through telepathy is all about vibration and frequency. And I do believe that the process I went through is very powerful, and that um I needed to, I think this is what everybody needs to do. I mean, it's okay to keep an eye on what's happening around you in the world, but don't sit in that don't sit in that shit. Don't sit in. So if you can eliminate fear, anger, any low vibrational frequency emotions, if you can eliminate those from your life, you hear people talk about affirmations, you hear people talk about manifestations. I, even not on a spiritual level, if you're at a good, so I've gotten to a point now where I have went through all past traumas, healed my inner child or my shadow self, and kind of understand that um that uh people did I my trauma attracted people to do what they did to me. They did what they did to me because of their traumas. So if I can forgive them for what they've done, and understanding why they did what they did because of their traumas, and then I do the same for myself. And then the kind of the next step was to get rid of anger, fear, frustration, and all these low vibrational frequencies. So I'm at a point now in my life, somebody will cut me off, I'll have a human experience, I'll get mad, but as quick as I can, I'm not going to sit in that low vibration. I'm going to redirect and come back to a peaceful place. For the first time in my life, I'm at peace all the time, and I find myself more focused in what I need to do, and I meditate. I ground and shield every day, and meditate, and I give myself time to really kind of nurture myself and to go through what I need to do. I think people need quiet time. I do think meditation is important. I do believe that um you know, um, not to sit in your own shit is
Yeah.
really important. It's like, you know what? I got something to do here. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and if you start believing in yourself, then there's a lot of things you'll accomplish. And I have, like, it's weird that people will stop me and recognize me from doing the HorrorCon, and I don't know anyone. And for the most part, it's really hard. Like, I've really had to train myself to even make eye contact with people. Being on the autism spectrum is not a natural thing for me, so I've had to learn that. So I do believe you need to overcome your obstacles, and and it's one of those things, is not stress yourself out. At the end of the day, I mean, I've been homeless a couple of times. I'm actually living on a couch right now because I went through a split. So, I mean, just you got to roll with it, right? Like, just, do you want to be a Debbie Downer all the time? Your business is probably going to tank because of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So you mentioned it, but was there anything specific you did to like sort of help increase that confidence in yourself, start believing in yourself? Like affirmations? Was there anything like working out like that specifically helped you?
I think nowadays things are easier. Starting out wasn't. No, it's just
Yeah.
like, but it's all to do with kind of your inner dialogue and what you got going on. And um like I said, it was just like, I how much of a dumbass was I to think that I could run a horror convention? I had all my friends tell me, You're an idiot. You have no money. You can't do this."
Yeah.
And just for spite, I did it. You know,
I mean, a good
So,
spite
I
story
mean,
is awesome.
I guess that's one negative thing, but
Yeah.
But yeah,
No.
no, I think it's one of those things is like you got to believe in yourself. You got to kind of build yourself up and have like it's amazing what a person can do if they put their mind through it. I was in the military for 6 years in the infantry, and I've watched guys that couldn't do a 16K run when they started, and then it wasn't a month or two later and they were doing it. You know what I mean? So I mean, driving and pushing yourself to do better, but also kind of, I think it's just as important to kind of nurture yourself and enjoy life and to go out and do things. And you know, I just started smoking weed and I never smoked weed. So,
Yeah.
I just one of those things. I'm not saying that go out and get high all the time, but I'm saying like go out and, live
Do
life,
some. Yeah.
enjoy life. I'm not going to promote, like, you know, drug addiction or whatever, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But like as far as like, just let your hair down.
Yeah.
So, right?
No,
Like I
that's
mean,
good
life's
advice.
too short. At the end of the day, like if you can keep in a positive frame of mind, things will just start coming to you.
Yeah.
You know what? If I was to wear every battle scar I had, then I wouldn't get the opportunities attracted to me that I have.
Yeah.
And attract and opportunities have come to me. I just I don't know where it's at, but I was offered a job to start booking bands, and it'd be a dream job to be able to book for indoor outdoor concerts, live music acts. And it's like, woohoo, the first time I've had an actual job since I was 25. So I don't know
So
how it'll last, but I mean, it's, so because everything I've done has been either a contractor or self-employed.
yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, contractor, you can say self-employed. It depends. There's a big difference. Is a lot of people are using, and like, I'm just not going to give you EI, CPP, whatever. But I have for the most part worked as a contractor since I've been 25. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's good advice. Believe in yourself and then let your hair down and have fun. That's a good combo.
Dude, it's like, if life's too short anyway, you're not going to be able to take anything with you when you die. How
Yeah.
you measure your success is you keep doing what you're doing day in and day out and enjoying life. Now, sometimes you have to do things as a means to an ends, and I get that too. But it's one of those things is have that balance in life. I have two daughters that are now adults, and my world revolves around them. And and you got to nurture all those relationships, including your business relationships, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so you need that balance, you need that. For me to be able to jump into something else, I've just become very adaptable
Yeah.
because I've done so many different things.
Yeah. So we don't want to take up too much of your time, but one question we like to ask everyone, especially, it sounds like, each answer, like I said, you unveil that you started something new. So you've had a very prolific career. You've done a lot of stuff, started a lot of different things. But what advice would you give to someone if they had an idea and they're thinking about pursuing it, but they maybe don't feel ready, don't feel qualified? What advice would you give to that person who's thinking about trying something new?
The biggest thing is to have the skill set that you need going into it. I used to tell people, there was one time I encouraged this guy. He's like, "What would you do?" And I'm just like, "Go out on your own, go out and do your business." But I had him so pumped up to go out on his own in business that he was so unprepared that he just tanked himself. Like he was all excited, I'm unstoppable and whatever. And I mean, you need to have confidence in yourself, but you also need to know what you're going into. Like just living outside of Calgary right now in a place called Carsland, and someone just bought the store over and the corner store over, and she's all excited because she just bought a hot dog roller. And I says, well, there's another store in town that has a hot dog roller. So, Why would you chase somebody else's tail, right? So, like, do your homework going into it. Make sure you have the skill set to do what you need to do, and all of the skill set, because I've had to wear so many different hats,
Yeah.
right? Um I'd make sure you always had I always would, as far as like cash flow forecast and anything like that, I would always err on the it depends. So I have two different documents. One where I'm blowing smoke up somebody's ass because I'm trying to get money. And the other one is reality, is what my
Yeah.
numbers is, my break even is so low. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And that's what you want. Is like, you want to tell everybody else you're a rock star, but the reality is you're really gearing back your numbers to make sure your break even is low, that you're make it so that you can be successful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's good
So
advice. I feel like a lot of people just like, they want to like pump up and affirmations, but it's like, it's like pumping yourself to go swim, but you've never taken a swimming lesson. Like, you got to have like some level of like competence and homework done, or else
yeah,
it's just
this
blow
guy
up.
was so excited to start his own business, and then he tanks himself. I'm like, oh my God, dude, like, it just didn't have the aptitude,
Yeah.
intellect, whatever. Like, there was a lot of things, and I mean, ignorance is bliss. I do believe that ignorance can be your friend sometimes, because you know, or believe in yourself. Like, I mean, I've done it. I all my friends told me I couldn't do what I did,
Yeah.
and my family, same thing. And my mom showed up the show for the first time from New Brunswick. She showed up the convention this year, and she was like so blown away. She's like, "Oh wow, this is what you do." She thought it was just a handful of me and my friends sitting in a room somewhere. No, there was like several thousand people through the door. I had the cast of ET. I had, you know, I had over 20 guests at my show.
Yeah.
And it with 20 guests is 20 really expensive flights.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, so you know,
Yeah.
so it's so sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You got to roll with it. It's good to have a little bit of cushion. Um, yeah,
Yeah. No, that's
I would say if you can do something, if you could start something when you already have cash flow coming in from somewhere else, that would be the ideal thing.
yeah. Yeah. It gives you a little bit of safety.
And a little safety net or whatever. Or you got deep pockets. If you got deep pockets, then that's fine.
Yeah.
But I would always I would always make sure that there's a contingency past your budget, because I don't have it and I've never had it. And I can tell you that when you're cutting checks that you might not be able to cash, it's a pretty dangerous game,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, sometimes ignorance is, like I said, sometimes ignorance is bliss, but it also can bite you in the ass too. I've watched multiple people do the exact same thing as me and say they're going to have sellout numbers through the doors, and nobody shows up. Nobody just shows up, and they've lost $250,000, right?
Yeah. No,
So
that's
I played it cautious, and I built my show organically and slowly expanded it.
yeah.
Is what I did.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
that'd be
Yeah.
tough to lose a $250,000, but at the end of the day, I guess you don't know if you don't try.
I
We're
can't
wrap.
afford to lose $250,000. I don't have one. You know.
No doubt. We do want to give you a chance to promote yourself and let people know where they can follow you, learn more, attend your convention, all that sort of stuff.
So my website's horror-con.ca. We're on Instagram, Facebook. If you look up Calgary Horror Con, we've actually gotten a lot of media coverage in the past. There's a lot of content up on YouTube and whatnot. If you search for the Calgary Horror Con, yeah, you can see past panels. You can see everything online. Um, and so if you Google Calgary Horror Con or horror-con.ca, lots of information will come up.
Awesome.
Um, I'm on social media as well, and LinkedIn as well, and so Dan Doherty. My profile pictures me covered in fake blood. It's my business. It's my
Yeah.
business
Fake,
profile
fake
pic.
blood. Yeah. Awesome, Dan. Well, thank you so much for responding to our cold email. It was fantastic to speak with you and learn more about what you do. It's super interesting and inspiring, so we really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. You keep in touch, please.